Good morning. Today is Monday, the 11th day of Kislev. We continue to Tanya in Kuntres Acharon, the last part of the Tanya, the fourth essay, still in the fourth essay, more than a week now. It's a long essay that Alter Rebbe discusses different mystical, kabbalistical concepts. And of course, we try to do it, to explain it as much as possible. The idea that Alter Rebbe is going to discuss in today's class is the fact that the Torah, the halacha specifically of the Torah, is a godly revelation down in this world like none other. And he's going to explain that although there is we see different levels, different things by the angels, that they come down to this world. Okay. We have different levels in the Kabbalistic terms that is revealed in this world. So there are certain things that are revealed in this world in a way that it's concealed. And there are certain things that is revealed in a way that it comes down completely in a different level. What do I mean by that? Let's explain a little more. So we used once an example, like a teacher wants to deliver a thought to the student. There's one way of delivering the thoughts is when you record the words, or you write it down and you give it over to the student. And he has a recording, can listen to the words of the teacher. So it's the wisdom and the thoughts, the depths of the thoughts of the teacher is there in the vehicle that brings the thoughts, whether it's the tape recorder or the paper. But this conceals. You look at the words of it, a child will read the words and is not going to understand anything. Or even if he listens to the words, you're not going to understand anything. But all of the thoughts are in this message. And the wiser you get, the deeper you understand the message of the teacher. That's what it says, that it takes 40 years for students to come to the depths of the understanding of a teacher. So it doesn't matter how long it takes, but eventually you're going to get to the depth of the teacher. Perhaps you can even go surpass the depth of the teacher. So here, what this means is that this is a delivery. It's concealed, but it's concealed. You have the very essence is concealed here. Then you have another way of delivering it, that when the student hears the teacher and he delivers the message to another teacher. So there it's already a whole different thing. There the message is already being processed by the student. And whatever comes to the next student that he's teaching is the way he absorbed it, the way he understood it. The way the student understood the teacher's teachings, he delivers to the next level. So this is just an example to illustrate about the concept here that is talking about. There's things that comes down from Hashem, the godliness that is revealed in this world in a way that's called hislapshus, completely enclosed and concealed. But then there is the chachma, the wisdom of Hashem, the will of Hashem, which is in the halacha, which is something that is not concealed at all. What does it mean, and not concealed? It comes in a concealed manner, but the essence really is what comes down. It is concealed to us, but when we study the laws of the Torah, we study the wisdom of Hashem, that is the very original wisdom of God that is revealed. So this is the differences between in general, to speak, what is talking about the mila, the advantage. What we have in the learning, the halacha, the laws of the Torah. This is so this is one introduction. In addition to that, also, we're going to give a little introduction about the terminology that he's going to use in today's class, which again, we're not going to understand everything. We're going to try to explain as much as possible. But the terminology that he's using is we know we have the four worlds, Atzilus, Bria, Yetzira, Asiya. Now in each world, we have the 10 attributes. The attributes, the intellectual attributes, Chochma bin Adas, there's the emotional attributes, and then we have Malchus. Malchus is the kingdom, which is the part, the recipient that receives everything and delivers to the next world. So this is one way of understanding the world. But within each world is also the concept, what it's called the nefesh, ruach, neshama of each world. The different level, different parts. There is the nefesh, the ruach, and the neshama of each world. Nefesh is the part of the garments of each world. Garments is like, we know garments by a human being. There is the spiritual garments, which is the thoughts, the speech, the action, the way the way the soul expresses itself. We have the ruach. The ruach is the emotion, the emotional part. The neshama is the life of everything, is the source of life of everything. Something which is beyond and above, that brings the life and vivifies everything of this world. So he's going to speak about where the malachim comes, the source of the malachim, of the angels, and the source of the neshamas, and comparing this to the source of the life of the halacha, the law of Hashem, the law of the Torah. So let's look inside. Continues Alter Rebbe and says, "Ve'atam," the reason why, what we said before, that the reason for this transcendence is talking about the difference between the way the life of everything in this world and compared to the life that is in the halachas. It says, Mishum de Chachma bina das de Asiya de Pchinas Neshama. As we said before, each world you have the nefesh, ruach, and neshama of the world, and within the nefesh, ruach, neshama of the world, you have again the intellect of the neshama and the emotional part of the neshama and so on. So he says the Chachma bina das de Asiya. The Chachma bina das, the intellectual part of Asiya, the world of Asiya, which is the lowest world. The Pchinas Neshama, in the state of the Neshama, Umakai Rachayus, the Chachma bina das, the Nefesh Ruach. This is the source of life of Chabad, Chachma bina das, of the Nefesh and the Ruach, the lower two parts of the Neshama. Vesel Deisein. V'yisavusan me'ayim leyesh im telesein ad soifei asiya ye'orat zechol tzava, and their offsprings, and they're coming into being me'ayim leyesh, something from nothing, ex nihilo, with their offsprings unto the ultimate stage of asiya, namely the earth and all its hosts. This is the source. Where is the source? The source, it is sourced in Chabad of Asiya, of the level of Neshama. Okay? So the Chabad of Asiya in the state of Neshama is thus the source for created beings. So again, we have the Chabad, the Chachma bin Das, in the state of neshama, like we said, each world is divided into three, the nefesh, ruach, and neshama. Neshama is the highest, the life of it. This is the source of the created beings. Aval chabad de halachas b'tameim, chochma bina das de halachas b'tameim, shebemalchus de bria v'yetzira. However, as to the Chabad of the laws with their rationales that are in Malchus of Beria and Yetzira, this level of Chabad is not a source of created being. When we're talking about the Chabad of the laws, the wisdom, understanding, and knowledge of the laws, in the level of Malchus, of Bria and Yetzira. So the Chabad is not the source there of a creating being, it serves as something else. So he says, what does it serve? He says, Inyan HaChachma I betikun partzufei yoatzilus. The function of Chachma within them is the rectification of the visage of Atzilus. Shebahem tluyos kol taimei hamitzvos, upon which are dependent all the rationales of the commandments. Mitzvos aseh behei chasadim, mitzvos lo yisaseh behei gevuros. The rationales of the positive commandments depend on the 5 attributes of kindness, of Zah, of Atzilus. The rationales of the prohibitions in the 5 attributes of severity, of the Zah, of Atzilus. Therefore, even when they descended to be clothed in the created beings, in other words, even when the rationales for the laws that essentially derived from the visage of Atzilus descended to become rationales for the laws for created beings, ein b'malchus de bria yetzira de b'chinas neshama davka shu mikelim de Atzilus. They are in malchus of bria and yetzira, of the specific godly state of neshama, which is of the vessels of Atzilus. For the 30 vessels of Ze'er, Anpin, and Nukva of Atzilus become a neshama for Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya. So, in other words, these vessels, they become part of the neshama of the Atzilus. And v'loi b'bchinas nefesh ruach, and they're not of the degree of ruach and nefesh and ruach. The rationales for the laws did not vest themselves within ruach and nefesh, which are created beings. So he says, what does he say? That the parts of the chachma, the wisdom that comes forth through for the mitzvahs, the halacha parts, they remain part of the neshama, they don't go down into the level of nefesh and ruach. That means that they remain without, they just go through the levels, just like passing by. They're not being affected with this going through these different levels the way other creatures are being affected and completely being reduced. And now the Alter Rebbe brings sort of a question, again in this part of the Tanya. This is a Kuntres Acharon. This is where the Alter Rebbe, the sons of the Alter Rebbe, they took notes from the Alter Rebbe. Now the Alter Rebbe wrote, and they added it to the Tanya. And in these notes, the Alter Rebbe also addresses certain questions that seems to be contradictions. So here it's going to say also that it seems to be a little contradiction, that here it says that the malachim, the angels, they are receiving from a lower level. And in another place, it says that they become a source that the Chachma Bina Das, they become a source for the Malachim, for the angels. It seems to be contradicting. So he's going to answer this. So he says, Ve'af the Chachma Bina Das de Bria Yetzira, the B'chinas Neshama. Shagava Moed Malosan B'chinas Malchus de Bria Yetzira de Neshama. Now, though Chabad, the intellectual part, of Bria and Yetzira, of the state of Neshama, by far transcends Malchus of Bria Yetzira, of the state of Neshama, obviously, because Chabad, again, we have the Bria Yetzira, the two lower worlds, after Atzilus. In them you have the intellectual part, and you have Malchus is the lowest part. Within the intellectual part, you have the intellectual part of the Neshama of that world. So certainly the intellect, the Chachma Bina of the Neshama of that world, of Bria Yetzira, are higher than the Malchus of the Bria Yetzira of the Neshama of that world. So what's the problem with that? He says, nevertheless, we find Rafal Pikain in Moker lebchinas lechachma bina das the Bria Yetzira shel bchinas nefesh ruach sheheina malachim. Still, the Chabad of Bria Yetzira are the source for Chabad of Bria Yetzira of the state of nefesh and ruach, namely the angels. So here we said that seems to be contradicting. Because here we said that even the Malchus of the Neshama is not the source for the Malachim, only for the Halachas. And there we find that even not only the Malchus is the source of the Malachim, of Nefesh Ruach, which is the Malachim, but even the Chabad, the wisdom, intellectual part of that Neshama is the source of the Nefesh Ruach of the Malachim. So that seems to be contradicting. Here we say that even the lower level is not the source for the Malachim, and yet we find that even the higher level is the source of the Malachim, meaning that they can be rooted even in the higher level, not only in the lower level. So the answer that he's going to give is, when we're talking about a source, there is a big difference if you're talking about the direct source or something which is like giving birth to something. So it brings the example that is used is when we say a child comes from the father's brain. But obviously it's not that the child is the father's brain, but there is a drop that comes and from this is created a child. So it goes through the process. So the father's brain, yes, is the root, but it's not the direct root. It's not the direct root. It goes through the whole process, and they completely become transformed through the process until a new creation comes to be. But when we're talking, so this is like the Malachim, when they come, we say they're rooted in the Chabad, in the intellectual part, but it goes through the whole process, and what is really created is a lower part. Now, whereas the halacha of the Torah, being that this is the ultimate wisdom of Hashem, the will of Hashem, so that may be concealed, but this is when we're saying that it is rooted, we're talking about the direct root, even though it is concealed, but it is a direct root for the halachas of the Torah. That's why we're saying that Hashem is in the halacha directly. So that's what it says, Loi kashamide. This is not a question at all. The be'emes hamalachim v'neshamayis einon elo mitipo animsheches mechabad v'neshama leyesoid zeirampim v'nitan lenukva. For in truth, the angels and the souls that are created of Chabad of Beria and Yetzirah are only of a drop drawn from Chabad of the Neshama to the attribute of Yesod of Zah, and then transmitted to Nukva, meaning to Malchus, Umisham yatzu b'bchinas leida. And from there, they, the souls and angels, they went forth in a state of birth, like a new entity. A new entity resulted. So he says, thus, this is not mere emanation from Chabad, as in the case with the laws, for such an emanation cannot in fact serve as a source of created beings. Rather, it resembles the drop that brings about the birth. For this reason, it is possible that created beings should result even from Chabad of Bria and Yetzirah. So yes, we are resulted, the root is the Chabad of Bria Yetzirah, but not in the same way as the halacha of the Torah. The halacha of the Torah is directly coming from there. Ki af im timtza loima, shenivu ma'oras hakelim the nukva de atzilus. Because even if it is proposed that they are created from the radiance of the vessels of nukva of Atzilus, nukva is malchus of Atzilus, nevertheless, they themselves descend into Bria and Yetzirah and Asiyah and become a neshama unto them. But the essence of Chabad, of neshama, mispashet bevov ktsova is the zeir anpin benukva. This essence extends into the 6 directions of zeir anpin and nukva. Again, zeir anpin zah. This is the 6 emotive attributes, and nukva is malchus. So in the 6 directions, all directions, just everything has 6 directions. The four directions and the top and the bottom. So that means that it covers everything. The essence of Chabad extends into the 6 directions. And this, where the 6 directions, where do we find the number 6 regarding the Torah? So we all know we have the Shisha Sidre Mishnah, the 6 orders, Shamim Shisha Sidre Mishnah Gemara. And there are the 6 orders of Mishnah and Gemara, the laws of the Torah. So the essence of Chabad thus descends specifically within the laws of the Torah, which are divinity. Torah in turn descends within the levels of Neshama, which is also divinity. So this is the end of today's shir. Hopefully we understood a little bit. The point being that within the halacha of the Torah, Hashem His essence is revealed. The neshamas, the malachim, in different levels, they come also, even though they're rooted in the chachma, but the way it comes down is through the filtering, and they're affected by the filtering, which is not the case. But the laws of the Torah, Hashem is hiding there, but the essence of Hashem is hiding there. And we have to find them. There's the story of Rabbi Avraham Malach, who was the son of the Maggid of Mezrich Maggid. So when he was a child, he was playing with his friends hide and seek, and he was able to find his friends. And then when it came his turn to hide, he found a good place to hide. And the friends were looking for him and couldn't find him, and they gave up. So he came crying to his father. He says, "Father, my friends are not looking for me. I'm hiding, and they're not looking for me." Obviously, his father was understanding the pain, but this also he said to him, "This is exactly what Hashem is saying to us. Hashem is hiding from us, playing hide and seek, and He knows, and He wants us to go and look for Him. He wants us to find Him. Where do we find Him? In these halachas, in the halachas of the Torah. Hashem is hiding there. The essence of Hashem is hiding in the Torah, and we need to keep looking and finding, and then we'll be able to find and Hashem will reveal himself with the coming of Mashiach. So thank you so much for joining us today. Any questions we can take now. Don't forget, share and subscribe. Invite friends to join us as we get close to finishing the Tanya in a couple of days. We're going to start the Tanya again. Any questions?